Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the Frontline Changes Report for the day of 886 for the 28th of July. I want to say 886, but no, tongue tied. So 886, 886. So anyway, there is a number of frontline changes report over the past 24 hours. It's surprisingly, I'm quite sure for those that hardcore supporters of TPA, you have followed me for some time. You would have remembered a time that there was very few changes. Things don't really change. It's just fighting, but frontline don't change. It's crazy to think that we have been having frontline changes non-stop every single day for the past half a year or more. It's unimaginable. Like, yeah, to think back is crazy. So anyway, we have updates at Vovchansk, Nevske, Novooleksandrivka, Progress, Vesele, Vovchansk, Krasnohorivka, and south of Kostyantynivka. So we're going to start off with Vovchansk. Over at the Battle of Vovchansk, there's finally some updates. So the Ukrainians actually attacked the Russian forces over at this aggregate plant. So the Ukrainians used a land suicide drone, and I think the track drone packed a lot of explosive, and it basically went in and exploded in the middle of or less, no more or less close to the middle of the aggregate plant, which the fact that they need to do this means that there is actually no Ukrainian control over at this area, which means that the Russian forces actually have conquered the entirety of the aggregate plant. It's unclear if the explosion actually take out any Russian troops or did any damage to the Russian side. However, it's not important to us because we only want to know the frontline change, and this actually confirms that the Russians have taken the entire of the aggregate plant. So we shall continue to monitor the situation over at this area in the Vovchansk, and we go all the way to Nevske over at the Crimea front or the southern part of Sviatove front. So for orientation, Sviatove, Crimea. So Nevske is here. Crispy Lemon is here. So over at Nevske, there is another geolocation in this region, and this time round it also corroborates the Ukrainian mapping, invalidating Russian claims. So Ukrainian forces definitely have a much better position, and again, Ukrainian mapping is more accurate when we have this sort of discrepancy between the Russian and the Ukrainian map. So previously we had this part that is over our last frontline changes report, or the last one. So now we have another one over here. So it's looking bad for the Russian mapping, but generally speaking, it doesn't change any situation strategically speaking, because the Ukrainian mapping continues here. So there's a high chance the Ukrainian mapping might be actually accurate. So we shall see how this goes. So, and the next frontline change is over at Novooleksandrivka, over at the Avdiivka front. So this is where the core fighting is, and there is some updates. You can see various frontline changes all around this area. So over at the Novooleksandrivka, this part is already previously claimed to be under Russian control by the Russian mapping. This time around we have the confirmation from the Ukrainian side that the Russian forces have indeed taken this tree line south of Vovchansk. So Russian forces have taken this area here. So far, this area have been largely pretty quiet. Despite that, we have all this fighting. The main direction of push by the Russians is not in this direction, but in the direction of Pokrov. So we move south. Over in the north of Progress, the Russian mapping have claimed Russian forces have taken this area north of Progress, which makes perfect sense. There is no reasonable reasons for the Ukrainians to be able to still hold this position. Even around here, this area might be very dubious for Ukrainians to be here. So even this tree line might be very, very, very unlikely. Until here, I believe. This area here, I believe Ukrainians could be there. But around here, it looks like a death trap. I don't think the Ukrainians want to be there. So, and even at this position, northwest of Progress is being threatened to be cut off, and the Russians are already over here. So if the Russian push in, the Ukrainians will have to withdraw. So yeah, so this makes sense. The next frontline change is over at Vesele. So the Russian forces have entered Vesele, and they have captured half of it very, very quickly, which means that there is actually no fight. The Ukrainians are not here. The Russians are simply just walked in and probably cleared it. Or the resistance is really, really sparse. The Ukrainians are not holding positions here. There is some mapped entrenchment in the north of this area. But I doubt the Ukrainians would dare to stay for much longer over these positions. But we shall see how this goes. Khodivka is nearby. Once Russians take Vesele, no, that's the next jump if they choose to. So it sounds like mission impossible. This is your mission if you choose to accept. Anyway, over in the north of Zelen, the Russian forces is pretty stretched. Actually, if they to go all the way to the edge of Zelen is a bit far. So I think the Russian forces need some reconstitution, some reorganization. So I think this is what's happening right now. But the Russians are expanding their zone of control around here. So including the capture of half of Vesele, they have also stretched southward from this west of Vovchansk to take better position and strengthen this salient around here. So this is the new front line change north of Zelen as they head down these tree lines. And there is supposedly these giant entrenchment positions. I'm not sure if this is super accurate, but we shall see how this develops. Yeah, the Russians will be extending. I think they want this entire tree line. They want to take all of these tree lines before I think they go for the Zelen attack. This will allow them to have a multiple vector of attack in this way. So I think that is more important to the Russians rather than go head on, and full frontal attacks is not a good idea. So the next frontline change is over at Krasnohorivka. So in the battle of Krasnohorivka, previously we have mapped all of this. The Ukrainian mapping have acknowledged further advance by the Russian forces. This time around, the Russians on the Ukrainian mapping have it actually looks something like this. So the Russian forces in the Ukrainian mapping have taken a bit more grounds from the previous mapping by them, but this is still within the Russian claim mapping also published previously. So we shall continue to monitor and see how this develop. So this is not very significant, as we have already quite certain that the Russians have taken all these places. And the last frontline change is south of Kostyantynivka. So yesterday I've reported this advance. Now the Russians pop in another location, and this time around this looks even nearer to the highway. This is only 1.5 kilometers from the highway or less than that, and the Russian forces geolocated at this position, which means that the Russians have made some huge progress down this other vector of attack, this other route. So the Russians are attacking in multiple vectors around this Vodian region or south of Kostyantynivka, and this one looks very close to cutting the road. So the Ukrainians is now going to have their work cut out. Where shall they hold the defense line? They need to defend the entire highway, and it looks like very, very difficult. So this is one vector, this is another vector, this is another vector, this is another vector, and there's another one over to Kostyantynivka. So there's various vector of attack, and looks like this one is of course the one that was failed. This one the Ukrainians have taken out because of this mad rush. So this one is successful, and then now we have this one. So this is gone, this is gone. So we shall see how this develop. The Ukrainians are struggling to hold back the Russians. Too many vectors of attack, probably not enough vehicles, because you need to use vehicles to kind of defend all these places because the grounds are really big. So anyway, thank you for watching. The situation report for the previous 2 days for the 27th, 26th and 27th has been out on the War channel. I covered because it's a bit late in the sit rep, I did a lot more analysis and explaining of the Russian way of fighting, the strategy that they deployed based on my observation in the coverage of this war, and I think you will be very, very interested. Despite the information might seem to be a bit late, but looking at these updates, I would say that it's still super relevant, and I highly encourage you to watch it. So I've dropped the link here do click it and watch it, and press the like button and subscribe button if you are not subscribed. The channel, the main channel have broke 80,000. Thank you for all your support and help me get to 100k, because there is some rumors that if I get to 100k, maybe YouTube will treat us better. So let's see how. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next update.